The massive arena stretched across 3 kilometers of reinforced metal and energy shields. Thousands of alien beings filled the viewing platforms, their excited voices mixing into a roar that shook the structure. Today was the day everyone had been waiting for. The Supreme Hunter was about to face his greatest challenge. Kale Vorthak stood at the center of the arena floor, his 7-foot frame covered in dark green scales that gleamed under the bright lights. His amber eyes scanned the shadows at the far end of the arena where his prey waited. For 23 years he had held the title of Supreme Hunter. No creature in the galaxy had been able to defeat him. The crowd grew quiet as Elder Morak of the Galactic Hunting Federation stepped forward. His voice boomed across the arena through the sound system. Citizens of the galaxy, today we witness history. Supreme Hunter Kale Vorthak faces the quantum shadow beasts of Mortis Prime. These creatures have killed 47 hunters in the past century. They can move between dimensions and strike from nowhere. Many believe they cannot be defeated. Kale flexed his clawed hands and checked his weapon belt. He carried traditional Drakmor hunting blades and a plasma rifle, but he knew this fight would require more than weapons. It would require instinct, speed, and the hunting knowledge passed down through generations of his people. In the viewing box reserved for family, his mate Zara held their newborn daughter close to her chest. Little Nara was only 3 weeks old, her tiny scales still soft and her eyes barely open. Zara whispered prayers to the ancient Drakmor spirits, asking them to protect her mate. The arena floor began to change. Holographic projections created the landscape of Mortis Prime around Kale. Rocky cliffs, deep caves, and twisted metal structures from crashed ships appeared. The temperature dropped 20 degrees and artificial fog rolled across the ground. Then came the shadow beasts. The first one materialized behind Kale without warning. It looked like a wolf crossed with smoke, its body shifting between solid and transparent. Red eyes glowed in its shadowy face as it lunged forward with claws extended. Kale spun around, his hunter instincts screaming danger a split second before the attack. His blade swept through the air, but the creature phased out of existence just as the weapon reached it. The crowd gasped as the beast reappeared to Kale's left, its claws raking across his arm. Green blood splattered on the arena floor. Kale growled and rolled away as another shadow beast emerged from the ground beneath his feet. Then another appeared from the wall. Soon he was surrounded by 6 of the creatures, all moving in and out of reality like deadly ghosts. Impossible, breathed Elder Morak. The tests only called for 3 beasts, but Kale was already adapting. Years of hunting had taught him to read the patterns of his prey. He watched how the shadow beasts moved, timing their phases. They could only stay in other dimensions for a few seconds before they had to return to normal space to breathe. He waited, perfectly still, as the beasts circled him. One lunged from his right. Instead of attacking it, Kale predicted where it would reappear and threw his blade to that spot. The creature materialized directly onto the spinning weapon, which cut deep into its chest. Black blood sprayed across the rocks as the beast collapsed. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Kale was already moving. 2 more beasts attacked together, one high and one low. He dropped to the ground and fired his plasma rifle upward, catching the high jumper in the stomach. As he rolled sideways, his claws tore open the throat of the low attacker. 3 down, 3 to go. But the remaining beasts were learning too. They began staying in the other dimension longer, appearing only to strike and then vanishing again. Kale found himself fighting enemies he could barely see, tracking them by sound and the slight disturbances they made in the fog. His hunting instincts pushed him beyond normal limits. He could smell their otherworldly scent, hear the whisper of their movement between dimensions, feel the tiny changes in air pressure when they phased in and out of reality. This was what separated true hunters from mere fighters. This was why he was Supreme Hunter. The 4th beast died when Kale caught it mid-phase, his blade finding solid flesh in the split second between dimensions. The 5th fell to a perfectly timed plasma shot as it emerged from a wall. That left one. The final shadow beast was the largest and oldest. Its red eyes held an intelligence that the others had lacked. It circled Kale slowly, staying just at the edge of visibility. The hunter could feel its hatred, its hunger for his death. They faced each other in the center of the arena, predator and predator, each waiting for the other to make a mistake. The crowd held its breath. Even the viewing screens throughout the galaxy went silent as billions watched the final confrontation. The beast struck with incredible speed, phasing in and out of existence so fast it seemed to be attacking from 5 directions at once. Kale moved like liquid fire, his body twisting and bending in ways that seemed impossible. His claws met shadow claws in sparks of energy. His blade cut through shifting smoke and found solid flesh. But the creature was too fast, too smart. Its claws found gaps in Kale's defenses. Deep wounds opened across his chest and legs. Green blood flowed freely, mixing with the artificial fog on the arena floor. Kale stumbled, his vision blurring from blood loss. The shadow beast sensed victory and materialized fully, preparing for the killing strike. Its claws raised high above its head, ready to tear out the hunter's throat. In that moment, Kale thought of his daughter. Little Nara, barely 3 weeks old, depending on him to come home. The Drakmor people, who looked to him as their greatest champion. The thousands of young hunters across the galaxy who dreamed of following in his footsteps. With his last surge of strength, Kale grabbed the beast's wrists as its claws descended. They wrestled in the center of the arena, the hunter's failing strength against the creature's supernatural power. Slowly, inevitably, the claws moved toward Kale's throat. Then Kale did something that shocked everyone watching. Instead of trying to push the claws away, he pulled them toward himself, using the beast's own strength against it. As the creature leaned forward off balance, Kale's hidden blade punched up through its chest and into its heart. The shadow beast's eyes went wide with surprise. Black blood poured from its mouth as it collapsed on top of the hunter. The arena exploded with cheers and screams of victory, but Kyle did not get up. The medical team rushed onto the arena floor and carefully moved the dead beast aside. Kyle lay still, his chest barely rising and falling. The creature's claws had found his heart. He was dying. As the medics worked desperately to save him, Kale's eyes found the family viewing box. Zara was there holding little Nara, tears streaming down her scaled face. With his last breath, Kyle whispered words that the arena microphones barely caught. "Protect her. She carries the blood of hunters." Supreme Hunter Kale Vorthak died as he had lived, as a warrior and protector, but his death was only the beginning of a much larger story, one that would change the galaxy forever. In the viewing box, baby Nara opened her amber eyes for the first time and looked toward her father's body. She did not cry. Even at 3 weeks old, she seemed to understand that crying would not bring him back. She was the daughter of the greatest hunter in galactic history. Soon she would be completely alone. 3 months had passed since the death of Supreme Hunter Kale Vorthak. The galaxy mourned the loss of its greatest champion, but something darker was spreading through the alien world's fear. The High Council of the Galactic Federation gathered in their crystal chambers on the neutral world of Nexus Prime. Representatives from 47 species sat in a great circle, their voices rising in heated debate. At the center of the argument was a 3-month-old Drakmor infant named Nara. Elder Scythek of the Aviarch spoke first, his golden feathers bristling with agitation. "The prophecies are clear. The bloodline of Kale Vorthak carries the curse of destruction. His offspring will bring ruin to any who shelter her." "Nonsense," replied Counselor Vex of the Peaceful Mollusk Collective. "She is just a baby. How can an infant threaten anyone?" "The same way her father did," hissed Ambassador Kree of the reptilian Sauron Empire. "By growing strong and wild. The Drakmor are natural killers. This child will become something worse than her father ever was." The debate had raged for weeks. Ancient texts from a dozen civilizations all spoke of similar prophecies. When the greatest hunter falls, his offspring shall rise to consume worlds. The signs would be clear. The child would be marked by shadow and flame, blessed with abilities that surpassed even her legendary father. What scared the aliens most was that baby Nara already showed these signs. Her eyes glowed brighter than any normal Drakmor child. Her tiny claws were sharper than they should be. When she cried, nearby electronic equipment sometimes malfunctioned. The Galactic Science Council could not explain these phenomena. "We must act before it is too late," declared Elder Scythek. "The child must be placed where she can harm no one." "You mean abandoned," said Counselor Vex quietly. "I mean contained. There is an asteroid in the Void Sector. It has a small research station that was abandoned years ago. The emergency systems still work. We can leave her there with enough supplies to last until she dies," finished Counselor Vex. The vote was 34 to 13. Baby Nara would be taken to the asteroid and left alone. 2 days later, A Federation transport ship arrived at the small asteroid designated as VS-247. The emergency research station was little more than a metal bubble attached to the rock surface. Inside, basic life support systems hummed quietly, recycling air and maintaining minimal heat. The Federation agents placed baby Nara in a small crib inside the station. They left containers of baby formula, clean clothing, and a few toys. The emergency beacon was set to broadcast a distress signal, but they programmed it to use an old frequency that few ships monitored anymore. "This is wrong," whispered one of the agents, a young aviarch named Skyrender Talon. He looked down at the sleeping baby, her tiny chest rising and falling peacefully. "Orders are orders," replied his partner coldly. "The Council has decided. Let the fates determine her future." They sealed the station and departed. Baby Nara was left alone in the vast emptiness of space, with only enough supplies to last 2 weeks. The asteroid drifted silently through the void sector, where few ships ever traveled. For 5 days, the distress beacon called out to empty space. The infant cried when she was hungry or scared, but no one heard her. The formula supplies began running low. On the 6th day, a human exploration ship detected the signal. Captain Jamin Park was reviewing star charts in his ready room aboard the exploration vessel Persistence when his communications officer knocked on the door. "Captain, we are picking up a distress beacon," announced Na Young Choi as she entered. "It is coming from an asteroid about 3 hours away." Captain Park looked up from his charts. He was a tall man with kind eyes and graying hair, a veteran of 20 years exploring the outer rim of human space. "What kind of distress signal?" "Emergency life support failure." "But Captain, the signal is very weak and using an old frequency. It might have been broadcasting for days." "Set course immediately. Maximum speed." Captain Park stood up and headed for the bridge. As a human, he had been raised with one simple rule: you never ignore a distress call. 3 hours later, the Persistence approached the small asteroid. The emergency station was barely visible against the dark rock surface, just a tiny metal structure clinging to life in the void. Dr. So-Young Kim, the ship's medical officer, accompanied the rescue team. She was a small woman with quick hands and a gentle manner, known throughout the crew for her compassion. Engineer Tae-Ho Lee came along in case the station's systems needed repair. They docked with the research station and carefully opened the airlock. The first thing they heard was crying. A baby was crying somewhere inside the dark station. "Emergency lights only," observed Tae-Ho Lee, checking his scanner. "Life support is failing. Maybe 6 hours of air left." They followed the crying to a small room where they found baby Nara in her crib. She was thin and obviously hungry, her tiny fists waving in the air. Her golden eyes were bright with tears, but she stopped crying when she saw the humans approaching. "Oh my," breathed Dr. Kim, carefully lifting the baby from the crib. "She is dehydrated and malnourished." "Look how thin she is. What species is she?" asked Captain Park. "Drakmor, I think. See the scales and the eye color. But what is a Drakmor baby doing alone on an abandoned asteroid?" They found the supply containers, most of them empty. A few bottles of formula remained, along with a small pile of clothing and toys. There was no note, no explanation, nothing to indicate who had left the child or why. "Captain," called Na-Young from the communication station, "I am detecting recent ship signatures. A Federation transport was here 6 days ago." Captain Park's face grew dark with anger. "They abandoned her. The Federation left a baby here to die." Dr. Kim was already examining Nara with her medical scanner. "She needs immediate care. IV fluids, proper nutrition, warmth. A few more days and she would not have survived. Then we got here just in time." Captain Park looked down at the baby in Dr. Kim's arms. Nara had stopped crying completely and was staring up at them with curious eyes. "Take her to sickbay immediately. Give her whatever she needs." As they prepared to leave the station, Tae-Ho Lee found something interesting in the computer logs. "Captain, this station was sealed 6 days ago. The computer shows a Federation authorization code." "They did not just abandon her," realized Captain Park. "They planned this. They wanted her to die here." Back aboard the Persistence, Dr. Kim worked to stabilize baby Nara. The infant responded well to treatment, drinking formula eagerly and seeming to enjoy the warmth and attention of the human crew. Several off-duty crew members came to visit her in sickbay, bringing small gifts and toys. "She is remarkably calm for what she has been through," observed Dr. Kim. Most babies would be traumatized by such abandonment. But look at her. She seems almost trusting. Captain Park contacted Starfleet Command to report the rescue. The response came back within hours, along with a priority message from the Galactic Federation. Warning to all vessels, the message read. The infant known as Nara, offspring of deceased Supreme Hunter Kale Vorthak, carries genetic markers associated with extreme violence and destruction. Ancient prophecies indicate she will become a threat to galactic peace. Any ship harboring this individual does so at great risk. The Federation strongly advises immediate surrender of the subject to proper authorities. Captain Park read the message twice, then deleted it. Sir? Asked Young. What should we do? Captain Park looked through the sickbay window at baby Nara, who was sleeping peacefully in Dr. Kim's arms. The doctor was humming a gentle Korean lullaby while rocking the infant. We do what humans always do, said Captain Park firmly. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. Send a message to the colony ship New Sol. Tell them we have a baby who needs a home. But the Federation warning. The Federation, said Captain Park, can go to hell. No human ship abandons children. Not ever. Within 6 hours, the colony ship New Sol had changed course to rendezvous with the Persistence. Word spread quickly through the human fleet about the abandoned Drakmor baby. Instead of fear, the humans felt outrage that anyone would leave a helpless infant to die. As the two ships prepared to dock, baby Nara opened her golden eyes and looked around the sick bay with curiosity. For the first time in her young life, she was surrounded by beings who saw her not as a curse or a threat, but simply as a child who needed love and care. She had no way of knowing it yet, but her real life was just beginning. 10 years had passed since baby Nara arrived on the colony ship New Sol. The metal corridors that had once seemed strange and cold to a Drakmor infant now felt like home. The sounds of human voices, the smell of Korean cooking, and the gentle hum of the ship's engines were as familiar to her as her own heartbeat. Nara Jong sat in the school cafeteria, laughing with her best friends Sung-Ho Yoon and Hyejin Lim. At 16 years old, she stood nearly 6 feet tall, her green scales gleaming under the artificial lights. Her amber eyes sparkled with amusement as Sung-Ho told a joke about their math teacher. Mr. Chang thinks he is so smart, giggled Hyejin, pushing her black hair behind her ear, but he cannot even figure out why his computer keeps crashing. That is because I keep fixing it for him, said Nara with a grin. He downloads too many cat videos during lunch break. The three friends had grown up together since Nara was 6 years old. To them, her appearance was normal. They had never known a world where having a Drakmor friend was strange or dangerous. She was just Nara, the girl who helped with homework, shared her lunch, and always knew the best hiding spots during their childhood games. Nara, called a voice from across the cafeteria. Mrs. Park, the head cafeteria worker, waved her over. I made extra kimchi today. Your favorite recipe. Nara's eyes lit up. Mrs. Park had spent years perfecting a version of kimchi that worked with Drakmor biology. It was spicier than the human version and included nutrients that Nara needed to stay healthy. Thank you, Mrs. Park, said Nara, accepting the bowl with genuine gratitude. You take such good care of everyone. Mrs. Park smiled warmly. You are family, dear. We all are. This was life aboard New Sol. 15,000 humans had accepted one Drakmor child completely into their community. She attended the same schools, ate in the same cafeteria, played in the same recreation areas, and participated in all the same activities as any human teenager. Her adoptive parents, Dongwoo and Miran Jong, had raised her with love and patience. Dongwoo worked as a maintenance engineer, keeping the ship's systems running smoothly. Miran taught elementary school and had helped Nara through her early years when learning to control her strength and reflexes. Remember, Miran had told her when she was 7 and accidentally broke a chair during a temper tantrum. Strength is not about how hard you can hit. It is about how gentle you can be when gentleness is needed. The lesson had stuck. Despite being physically capable of breaking human bones with ease, Nara had learned to move through the world with careful control. She hugged friends softly, handled delicate objects with precision, and never used her natural advantages unfairly. After lunch, Nara headed to her favorite class, Advanced Engineering with Mr. Tae-ho Lee, the same engineer who had helped rescue her years ago. He had become something of a mentor to her, recognizing her natural talent for understanding complex systems. Today we will work on quantum drive calculations, announced Mr. Lee, as the students took their seats. These equations determine how fast our ships can travel between star systems. Nara loved these problems. While other students struggled with the mathematical formulas, she seemed to understand them intuitively. Her mind could visualize the quantum fields and energy flows in ways that amazed her teachers. "Nara," said Mr. Lee, "would you explain your solution to problem 7? She stood up and walked to the front of the class, her movements naturally graceful despite her size. As she wrote equations on the board, her classmates watched with interest rather than fear. This was normal for them. "The quantum field destabilizes here," she explained, pointing to a section of the calculation. "But if we adjust the field harmonics like this, the drive can maintain stability at much higher speeds." Mr. Lee studied her work carefully. "Excellent reasoning. You have found a way to increase efficiency by 12%. The drive engineers would be very interested in this approach." After class, Nara was walking to her next period when she noticed something unusual. A small group of alien visitors was being given a tour of the ship. She recognized them as Aviarch diplomats, their golden feathers marking them as high-ranking officials. The tour guide was explaining the ship's educational system when one of the Aviarchs spotted Nara in the hallway. "Is that her?" whispered Elder Skyrender Karos, his voice carrying farther than he intended. "The cursed one?" The tour guide, Commander Jinwoo Park, nodded calmly. "That is Nara Jong, yes. She is one of our top students." The Aviarch diplomat stared at Nara with a mixture of fascination and horror. They had come to New Seoul expecting to find evidence of destruction and chaos. Instead, they found a normal teenager walking to chemistry class with an armload of books. "But where is the violence?" asked another Aviarch. "The prophecies speak of rage and bloodlust. The only thing she gets angry about is when someone does not do their homework," replied Commander Park with a slight smile. "Would you like to observe one of her classes?" The aliens followed the tour group to the chemistry lab, where Nara was working with her lab partner Sung Ho on a complex experiment. They watched through the observation window as she carefully measured chemicals with precision that would have impressed professional scientists. "Her control is remarkable," admitted Elder Karos reluctantly. "For a Drakmor of her age to show such restraint." "She is not just any Drakmor," said Commander Park. "She is human-raised. She has learned our values along with her natural abilities. The experiment required lifting heavy equipment that would normally take 2 humans to move. Nara handled it easily with one hand while continuing to mix chemicals with the other. But instead of showing off her strength, she was careful to help Sung Ho feel involved in the process." "Amazing," breathed one of the younger Aviarch. "She could dominate her classmates easily, but she chooses cooperation instead." That evening, Nara returned to her family apartment in Section 7 of the ship. The walls were decorated with her school achievements, family photos, and artwork from her childhood. It was a normal human home in every way, except for the specially reinforced furniture and the heat lamps she needed for proper rest. "How was school today?" asked her adoptive mother Miran as she prepared dinner. "Good. We had visitors. Some Aviarch diplomats wanted to see the cursed Drakmor child," said Nara with a slight grin. "They seemed disappointed that I was not destroying everything." Dongwoo laughed from his chair where he was reading ship maintenance reports. "Give them time. Wait until they see you during exam season. You get pretty scary when you are stressed about grades." "Dad," protested Nara, but she was smiling. They sat down for dinner together just like any normal family. Miran had made bulgogi with the special kimchi, along with rice and vegetables. Nara ate with chopsticks she had learned to use at age 4, her movements graceful despite her claws. "The Aviarch asked Commander Park about my training," said Nara between bites. "They wanted to know what combat skills I have learned." "What did he tell them?" asked Miran. "That my most dangerous skill is my ability to organize study groups. Apparently, I am ruthlessly efficient at making sure everyone understands the material." The family laughed together. This was what the alien visitors could not understand. Nara had indeed inherited her father's hunting instincts and physical capabilities. She could track, fight, and hunt better than any human. But she had also inherited something else: the values and culture of the humans who raised her. Her hunting instincts had been channeled into academic excellence. Her natural leadership abilities went toward helping classmates succeed. Her incredible strength was used to help elderly neighbors carry groceries or assist with ship maintenance. Later that night, Nara sat at her desk working on homework. Through her apartment window, she could see the stars streaming past as New Sol continued its journey through space. This ship and its people were her world, her family, her home. She had no memory of her birth father or the arena where he died. She knew the stories, of course. Everyone on the ship knew she was the daughter of the famous Supreme Hunter. But to her, that felt like ancient history. Her real father was Dongwu Zhong, who had taught her how to fix engines and change light bulbs. Her real mother was Miran Zhong, who had helped her with nightmares and celebrated every good grade. What the alien diplomats saw as a miracle of human nurture, Nara simply saw as love. She had been raised by people who believed that every child deserved a chance to grow up safe and happy. The prophecies and curses meant nothing compared to bedtime stories, birthday parties, and family dinners. As she finished her engineering homework, Nara smiled to herself. Tomorrow there would be more classes, more time with friends, and more opportunities to learn and grow. She had no idea that across the galaxy, other species watched her development with growing amazement. To them, she was proof that humans possessed something special. To herself, she was just a teenager trying to pass her quantum physics exam and hoping her crush in history class would notice her new haircut. The cursed daughter of the greatest hunter in galactic. History had become something no prophecy had predicted, a normal, happy human teenager who just happened to have scales and claws. The emergency sirens echoed through the corridors of New Sol at 3 a.m. Nara woke instantly, her amber eyes snapping open with the sharp awareness that came from her Drakmor heritage. Around her, other residents stumbled from their beds, confused and frightened by the urgent wailing. "All civilians report to emergency stations," came the announcement over the ship's communication system. "This is not a drill. We are under attack." Nara quickly dressed and ran to meet her adoptive parents. Dongwu was already pulling on his maintenance uniform, while Miran gathered emergency supplies with practiced efficiency. "Pirates," said Dongwu grimly as they headed toward their assigned emergency station. "The morning briefing mentioned increased activity in this sector, but we thought we were safe." They joined the stream of people moving through the ship's corridors. Families carried sleeping children. Elderly residents helped each other walk, and everyone moved with the calm organization that came from years of emergency drills. But this time was different. This time was real. The emergency station was a large cargo bay that had been converted into a shelter area. Hundreds of people gathered there, sitting on blankets and talking in worried whispers. Large screens on the wall showed tactical displays of the space around New Sol. Nara found herself staring at the screens with unusual intensity. Something about the attack patterns bothered her, though she could not explain why. The pirate ships moved in a strange formation, not like the random attacks she had read about in history books. "Attention all residents," announced Commander Wu Jinhan, the ship's defense coordinator. His face appeared on the screens, looking tired and stressed. "We are facing a large pirate fleet led by someone called Grimclaw Theron. They have already attacked 3 other colony ships this month." Tactical displays showed 12 pirate vessels surrounding New Sol. They were smaller than the colony ship, but much faster and more heavily armed. The pirates attacked in waves, striking quickly and then retreating before the human defenders could respond effectively. "Our defense systems are holding," continued Commander Han. "But these pirates use tactics we have never seen before. They seem to predict our every move." Nara watched the battle unfold on the screens. The pirate ships moved like a pack of wolves, coordinating their attacks with perfect timing. One group would draw the human fighters forward, while another struck from an unexpected angle. When the humans adjusted their defenses, the pirates had already shifted to a new strategy. "They are not fighting like pirates," Nara said quietly. Her friend Sung Ho, who was sitting beside her, looked confused. "What do you mean?" "Pirates want cargo and supplies. They attack quickly to steal what they can and escape before military ships arrive. But these ships," Nara studied the tactical display more carefully. "They are testing our defenses, learning our patterns. This is not a robbery. This is a hunt." Several adults nearby overheard her comment and turned to listen. Among them was Dr. Kim, the medical officer who had helped rescue Nara years ago. "What kind of hunt?" asked Dr. Kim. Nara felt something strange stirring in her mind. Images and instincts she had never experienced before began to surface. She could almost smell the fear of the human defenders, almost hear the excitement of the attacking pirates. Her father's hunting knowledge, dormant for 16 years, suddenly awakened. Pack hunting, she said with growing certainty. They are using a modified Drakmor formation. See how the lead ships draw our fighters out of position, while the flankers circle around. That is the Claw of Scythax maneuver. The adults stared at her in amazement. None of them had ever heard of such a thing. How could you possibly know that? Asked Mr. Lee, who had arrived at the emergency station to check on his students. Nara's eyes remained fixed on the tactical display. The knowledge was flowing through her mind like water through a broken dam. Generations of Drakmor hunting wisdom that had been passed down through her bloodline suddenly became clear. The lead ship is not the real leader, she continued. It is a decoy. The actual pack leader is... She studied the formation carefully. There, the ship hanging back at the edge of the formation. Grimclaw Theron is directing the hunt from a safe distance while his subordinates take the risks. As if to confirm her words, the tactical display showed the rear ship sending coordinated signals to all the other pirate vessels. Commander Han needs to know this, said Dr. Kim urgently. She activated her communicator and contacted the bridge. Within minutes, Commander Han appeared on the emergency station screens, his face showing desperate hope. Nara, Dr. Kim says you understand these attack patterns. Can you help us? Nara stood up slowly, her mind racing with tactical possibilities. The hunting instincts that had made her father the greatest hunter in galactic history were now fully awakened in her. The pack formation has a weakness, she explained, her voice carrying a new authority that surprised everyone. They rely on the pack leader to coordinate attacks. If you can force the leadership forward, the formation will collapse into chaos. How do we do that? Nara closed her eyes and visualized the battle like a three-dimensional puzzle. She could see the flow of ships, the timing of attacks, the psychology of predators hunting their prey. Create a fake weakness on the port side. Pull half your fighters away from that section, and make it look like your defenses are failing. The pack leader will smell victory and move forward to direct the killing strike personally. That is when you spring the trap. Commander Han looked skeptical. You want me to deliberately weaken our defenses? Not weaken. Redirect. Move the port side fighters to hidden positions behind the cargo bays. When Grimclaw Theron moves forward to lead the final attack, he will fly directly into an ambush. The commander hesitated for a moment, clearly struggling with the decision to trust battle tactics to a 16-year-old girl. But the current strategy was failing, and desperate times called for desperate measures. Do it, he ordered his tactical officers. The battle changed immediately. Human fighters pulled back from the port side of New Sol, creating what appeared to be a critical gap in the defenses. The pirate ships sensed opportunity and began concentrating their attacks on that section. Nara watched the tactical display with predatory intensity. Her amber eyes tracked every ship movement, every tactical shift. The other residents in the emergency station watched her with growing amazement and unease. This was not the gentle teenager they knew. This was something else entirely. He is taking the bait, Nara whispered. The pack leader is moving forward. Wait, now. The hidden human fighters erupted from their concealed positions behind the cargo bays. Grimclaw Theron's ship, caught completely off guard, found itself surrounded by enemy fighters. The other pirate ships, suddenly leaderless, began attacking randomly instead of following coordinated plans. Within 20 minutes, the pirate fleet was in full retreat. 3 of their ships had been captured, including one carrying Grimclaw Theron himself. The remaining pirates fled toward the edge of the star system, their pack formation completely broken. Commander Han's face reappeared on the emergency station screens, showing relief and amazement. The attack has been repelled. Thanks to tactical advice from Nara Jung, we not only survived but captured several enemy vessels. Well done, everyone. The emergency station erupted in cheers and applause. People rushed to congratulate Nara, patting her on the back and praising her quick thinking. But she barely noticed the celebration. Her mind was still processing the flood of tactical knowledge that had awakened during the battle. Dr. Kim approached her with a concerned expression. Nara, are you all right? You seem different. Nara blinked and looked around at the celebrating humans. Slowly, the predatory intensity faded from her eyes, replaced by the familiar warmth of the teenager they all knew. I am fine, she said. Though her voice still carried traces of the authority she had shown during the battle, it was just instinct. But privately, she knew something fundamental had changed. The hunting knowledge of her bloodline was no longer dormant. She could feel it humming beneath the surface of her consciousness, ready to emerge whenever she needed it. Word of the battle spread quickly through human space. The colony ship that had been saved by the tactical genius of a 16-year-old Drakmor girl became the subject of intense interest throughout the galaxy. More importantly, it became the subject of fear among the alien species who had abandoned her years ago. If the offspring of Kael Vorthak was developing abilities that surpassed even her legendary father, what did that mean for the prophecies they had tried so hard to prevent? The Galactic Federation called an emergency session to discuss this new development, but on New Sol, life continued as normal. Nara returned to her classes, her homework, and her friends. The only difference was that now, when she looked at tactical problems in her engineering courses, she saw them with the eyes of a hunter. And that change would soon reshape not just her own future, but the future of the entire galaxy. The message from the Galactic Federation arrived 6 months after the pirate attack. It was formal, cold, and left no room for argument. Nara read it 3 times before the full meaning sank in. The Galactic Federation hereby demands that the individual known as Nara Jung submit to the trial of origins within 30 standard days. This trial will determine whether she carries the curse of her bloodline and poses a threat to galactic peace. Failure to comply will result in immediate sanctions against all human colonies. Nara sat in her family's apartment aboard New Sol, holding the official document with hands that trembled slightly. Her adoptive parents, Dongwu and Miran, read over her shoulder with growing horror. "This is barbaric," said Miran, her voice shaking with anger. "They want to put our daughter through the same trial that killed her father." The trial of origins was legendary throughout the galaxy. It was the ultimate test of a hunter's abilities, designed to push warriors beyond their limits. Many who entered the trial never came out alive. Those who survived were forever changed by the experience. "We will not let them do this," said Dongwu firmly. "The human government will protect you." But even as he spoke, they all knew the truth. The Galactic Federation controlled trade routes, defense treaties, and diplomatic relations throughout known space. If they wanted to force this trial, they had the power to make life very difficult for humanity. Within hours, protests erupted throughout human space. On New Sol, thousands of residents gathered in the main assembly hall to voice their outrage. Captain Park, now promoted to admiral, addressed the crowd with barely controlled fury. "This is nothing less than attempted murder," he declared. "They abandoned Nara as a baby, hoping she would die. Now that she has grown strong and capable, they want to finish what they started." The crowd roared its agreement. Signs reading "Protect our daughter" and "No trial for Nara" filled the assembly hall. But despite their anger, everyone understood the impossible situation they faced. In her quarters, Nara watched the protests on the ship's news channels. Her friends Seungho and Heejin sat beside her, offering what comfort they could. "You do not have to do this," said Heejin, tears streaming down her face. "We can find another way." "Run away with us," urged Seungho. "We will hide in the Outer Rim territories where the Federation cannot find us." Nara appreciated their loyalty, but she had already made her decision. That evening, she called a press conference that was broadcast throughout human space and monitored by alien governments across the galaxy. "I will face the trial of origins," she announced, her voice calm and steady. "Not because the Federation demands it, but because I choose to." The announcement shocked everyone. Her adoptive parents begged her to reconsider. Admiral Park offered to mobilize the entire human fleet to protect her, but Nara remained firm in her decision. "My father died in this trial," she explained to the gathered reporters, "but he died protecting others and proving his honor. If I must face the same test, I will do it for the same reasons. I want to prove that humans were right to save me. I want to show the galaxy that their prophecies and curses mean nothing compared to the love and values that raised me." The news spread like wildfire. Across human space, people watched with pride and terror as their adopted daughter prepared to face almost certain death. In alien territories, governments prepared for what they assumed would be the final chapter of the cursed bloodline. 2 weeks later, Nara arrived at Mortis Prime, the death world where her father had faced his final battle. The planet's surface was a nightmare landscape of twisted metal, poisonous atmosphere, and creatures that existed only to kill. The trial arena had been built into a massive crater, surrounded by viewing platforms that could hold thousands of spectators. Representatives from 47 alien species had gathered to witness the trial. Most expected to see the daughter of Kale Vorthak die horribly, finally ending the threat they believed she represented. A few, particularly some younger aliens who had heard stories of human compassion, quietly hoped she might survive. The human delegation was small but determined. Admiral Park led the group along with Dr. Kim, Commander Han, and surprisingly Nara's two best friends. Seung-ho and Heejin had insisted on coming despite the dangers, saying they would not let her face this alone. "The trial rules are simple," announced Elder Scythek of the Aviarch, his golden feathers gleaming in the arena lights. "The candidate must survive 3 quantum shadow beasts for 1 hour. No weapons, no armor, no assistance. Only natural abilities and instincts." Nara stood at the center of the arena floor wearing simple gray clothing. At 18 years old, she had grown to nearly 7 feet tall, her green scales rippling with muscle beneath her shirt. Her amber eyes surveyed the arena calmly, taking note of every rock, every shadow, every possible advantage. "Before the trial begins," called Elder Thrak of the Drakmor Empire, "I would speak with the candidate." The ancient Drakmor leader descended to the arena floor. He was old beyond measure. His scales faded to silver gray, but his eyes still burned with the fire of a hunter. He approached Nara slowly, studying her with the intensity of a master evaluating a student. "You carry the blood of the greatest hunter in our history," he said in the ancient Drakmor language. "I carry the love of the greatest family in the galaxy," Nara replied in perfect Korean, then switched to Drakmor. "But I honor both equally." Elder Thrak's eyes widened with surprise. Despite being raised by humans, she had somehow learned the language of her birth species. More importantly, her response showed wisdom beyond her years. "Your father faced this trial with rage and pride," said the elder. "How will you face it?" Nara looked up at the viewing platforms where thousands of aliens watched her with expectation and fear. Then she found the small section reserved for humans, where her family and friends sat with tears in their eyes but pride in their hearts. "With love," she said simply. The elder studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Perhaps that will be enough." The arena floor began to shift and change as holographic projectors created the landscape of Mortis Prime. Twisted metal structures rose from the ground. Toxic fog rolled across the floor and the temperature dropped to near freezing. In the distance, red eyes began to glow as the quantum shadow beasts stirred to life. "The trial begins now," announced Elder Scythek. "May the spirits of your ancestors guide you." 3 shadow beasts materialized at different points around the arena. They were larger than the ones her father had faced, their bodies shifting between solid and transparent as they phased in and out of reality. Red eyes burned with hunger and malice as they began to stalk their prey. In the viewing platforms, the spectators fell silent. The quantum shadow beasts had killed 47 hunters over the past century. No one had ever survived facing 3 of them at once. Nara stood perfectly still in the center of the arena, her eyes closed, breathing slowly and deeply. The hunting instincts of her bloodline flowed through her consciousness, but they were tempered by 18 years of human wisdom and compassion. The first beast struck without warning, phasing into reality directly behind her. Its claws swept toward her neck in a killing blow that would have decapitated a normal being. But Nara was no longer standing where the beast expected her to be. She had moved like liquid lightning, dropping low and spinning away from the attack. As the creature's claws passed harmlessly through empty air, she was already analyzing its movement patterns, learning the timing of its phases between dimensions. The second beast attacked from the side while the third came from above. Nara flowed between their strikes like water between rocks, never quite where they expected her to be. But she made no attempt to fight back. She simply avoided their attacks while studying their behavior. The alien spectators watched in amazement. This was not the brutal combat they had expected. This was something else entirely. A dance between predator and prey where neither partner seemed entirely sure which role they were playing. Minutes passed. The shadow beasts grew more frustrated as their attacks failed to connect. They began coordinating their strikes, trying to trap Nara in a position where she could not escape all 3 attacks. Simultaneously, that was when something remarkable happened. Nara began to speak to the beasts in a language no one in the arena recognized. It was not Drakmor, not human, but something older and deeper. The sound she made seemed to resonate with the creature's pain and anger. The shadow beasts slowed their attacks, confused by this unexpected communication. For the first time in the trial's history, Someone was trying to understand them rather than simply destroy them. And in that moment of connection, Nara made a discovery that would change everything. The quantum shadow beasts stopped their attacks completely. For the first time in the trial's bloody history, the creatures that had killed dozens of warriors stood perfectly still, listening to the strange sounds coming from their intended prey. Nara continued speaking in the ancient language that seemed to flow from somewhere deep in her genetic memory. The words felt familiar on her tongue, though she had never heard them before. They were sounds of pain, of loneliness, of creatures trapped between worlds with no way home. "What is she doing?" whispered Elder Sethek in the viewing stands. "Why is she not fighting?" The shadow beasts began to respond, making low sounds that echoed strangely in the arena. Their red eyes, which had burned with hunger and rage, now showed something different: confusion, hope, recognition. As Nara listened to their responses, understanding flooded through her mind. These creatures were not naturally violent. They were not monsters born to kill. They were victims. "You are in pain," she said aloud in Standard Galactic, addressing the beasts while speaking to the thousands of spectators. "You have been in pain for so long that you have forgotten anything else exists." The largest shadow beast, the pack leader, approached her slowly. Its body flickered between solid and transparent as quantum energy coursed through its form. Up close, Nara could see the agony in its eyes. The constant phasing between dimensions was tearing the creature apart at the molecular level. She reached out carefully with her enhanced Drakmor senses, feeling the quantum fields that surrounded the beast. What she discovered made her gasp with horror and understanding. "They are not supposed to exist like this," she announced to the stunned arena. "Someone did this to them. Someone forced them to live between dimensions as an experiment." In the viewing stands, several alien scientists shifted uncomfortably. The shadow beast had been discovered on Mortis Prime 300 years ago, shortly after a research facility had mysteriously exploded on the planet's surface. No one had ever connected the two events. "The quantum fields are artificial," Nara continued, her voice carrying across the silent arena. "They are powered by devices implanted in their bodies. These creatures cannot return to normal space because the implants will not let them." The shadow beast before her made a sound that was unmistakably a whimper. It lowered its massive head, and Nara saw what looked like metal ports along its neck and spine. The implants were old and corroded, causing constant pain as they forced the creature to phase between dimensions. "The trial demands that you survive for 1 hour," called Elder Scythek from above. "You cannot win by talking to them." "I am not trying to win," replied Nara. "I am trying to heal them." She approached the largest beast slowly, her hands raised peacefully. The creature watched her with eyes that seemed to plead for help. Behind it, the other two shadow beasts waited, their attacks forgotten in the face of something they had never experienced before: compassion. "This will hurt at first," Nara told the creature gently, "but then you will be free." Using the incredible precision that came from her Drakmor heritage, combined with the engineering knowledge she had learned from humans, Nara began to carefully remove the quantum implants. Her claws, evolved for hunting and killing, became surgical instruments guided by love instead of violence. The beast trembled as she worked, but it did not attack. Somehow it understood that this strange hunter was trying to help rather than harm. The first implant came free with a spark of quantum energy. The shadow beast's body solidified slightly, becoming more stable. The creature looked at its own paws in wonder, seeing them clearly for the first time in centuries. The arena had fallen completely silent. Thousands of spectators watched in amazement as Nara performed surgery on creatures that were supposed to be killing her. In the human section, her friends and family wept with pride and fear. "Impossible," breathed Elder Thrak. "In all my years, I have never seen such a thing." The second implant required more delicate work. It was fused directly to the creature's spine, and removing it wrong could kill the beast instantly. But Nara's hands moved with the steady precision of a master engineer, guided by the hunting instincts that let her father track any prey across any terrain. "Almost done," she whispered to the creature. "Hold still just a little longer." The final implant came free in a shower of sparks. The shadow beast body immediately stabilized, becoming fully solid for the first time in 300 years. Its red eyes faded to a natural golden color, and the constant pain that had driven it to violence finally ended. The creature looked at Nara with wonder and gratitude. Then it did something that shocked every person in the arena. It bowed its head in respect to the young woman who had given it freedom. The other two beasts approached hopefully. They had watched their pack leader's transformation and understood that salvation was possible. Nara worked quickly, her confidence growing with each successful removal. Within 30 minutes, all three shadow beasts had been freed from their artificial torment. The creatures that had terrorized hunters for centuries now played together like puppies, delighting in their ability to exist fully in normal space. They rolled on the arena floor and chased each other around the twisted metal structures, celebrating their freedom with pure joy. "The hour has passed," announced the trial timekeeper, his voice filled with awe. "The candidate has survived." But surviving was not the most remarkable thing Nara had accomplished. She had solved a problem that had puzzled the galaxy's greatest scientists for 3 centuries. She had turned monsters back into the peaceful creatures they had originally been. Elder Thrak descended to the arena floor, his ancient face showing emotions he had not felt in decades. "In all the history of our people," he said to Nara, "no hunter has ever shown such wisdom. You have honored your father's memory while creating something entirely new." The other Drakmor elders followed, along with representatives from dozens of alien species. They surrounded Nara not with fear or suspicion, but with genuine respect and admiration. "What you have done changes everything," said Elder Scythek, his golden feathers ruffled with excitement. "These beasts were the ultimate test of a warrior's skill. If they can be healed instead of killed, what other impossible problems might have peaceful solutions?" Nara looked around at the transformed shadow beasts, now playing peacefully in the arena that had once been their prison. "My human family taught me that the greatest victory is not defeating your enemy," she said. "It is turning your enemy into a friend." Dr. Kim rushed down from the viewing stands to check on Nara, followed by Admiral Park and her closest friends. They found her tired but unharmed, surrounded by creatures that were now gentle as house pets. "How did you know?" asked Dr. Kim. "How did you know they could be healed?" "I listened to them," Nara replied simply. "And I remembered something my human father told me when I was little. He said that when something is broken, you should always try to fix it before you throw it away." The shadow beasts, understanding that their healer needed rest, formed a protective circle around the humans. These creatures that had once killed dozens of warriors now stood guard over the young woman who had given them back their lives. Word of Nara's achievement spread instantly across the galaxy. The trial that was supposed to prove she was cursed had instead proven she was blessed with abilities beyond anything her father had possessed. But more importantly, it had proven something about humanity itself. The aliens who had abandoned Nara as a baby had expected her to become a monster. Instead, the humans who raised her with love had created something the galaxy had never seen before. A warrior who fought not to destroy, but to heal. As the arena lights dimmed and the spectators began to file out, the 3 shadow beasts curled up around Nara like enormous guard dogs. They had found not just freedom, but a protector they would follow anywhere. "What happens now?" asked Jung-ho, still amazed by what his best friend had accomplished. Nara looked up at the stars visible through the arena's dome, her amber eyes bright with possibility. "Now we go home," she said. "And we start building a better galaxy." The trial was over, but Nara's real work was just beginning. She had proven that the daughter of the greatest hunter could be something even greater, the galaxy's first healer of the broken, protector of the abandoned, and bridge between species that had forgotten how to trust each other. The curse the aliens had feared was actually a gift the universe had been waiting for. And it had been delivered by the only species brave enough to raise a dangerous child with love instead of fear. 5 years had passed since the trial of origins changed everything. The arena on Mortis Prime had been transformed from a place of death into something beautiful. Where warriors once died facing monsters, children from dozens of species now played together in carefully tended gardens. Nara Jong stood at the center of it all, no longer the frightened teenager who had faced the shadow beasts. At 23, she had grown into her role as the galaxy's first healer hunter, a title that had been created specifically for her achievements. "The morning class will focus on tracking techniques," she announced to the 30 young students gathered around her. They came from 12 different species, all eager to learn the new methods she had developed. "But remember, we track not to kill, but to protect and understand." Among her students was young Kira, a 10-year-old aviarch whose golden feathers marked her as potential leadership material. Beside her sat Thox, a Sauron child whose parents had once called for Nara's death. Now they sent their son to learn from her willingly. The students represented the most remarkable change in galactic society. After witnessing Nara's success, alien families had begun requesting that their children be educated alongside humans. The cultural exchange program that started with one abandoned Drakmor baby had grown into a movement that was reshaping civilization. Teacher Nara called Kira, raising her feathered wing. "My grandfather says the old ways were better. He says hunters should be fierce and proud, not gentle like humans." Nara smiled patiently. She had heard such comments many times over the years. "Your grandfather was trained to see the galaxy as full of enemies to defeat. We are teaching you to see it as full of friends you have not met yet. Which view do you think will create more peace?" The question sparked animated discussion among the students. This was exactly what Nara hoped for. She wanted them to think critically about violence and compassion, to choose their path based on reason rather than tradition. In the viewing gallery above the classroom, representatives from the Galactic Federation watched the lesson with mixed feelings. Elder Scythic, now much older and more thoughtful than the arrogant diplomat who had once demanded Nara's death, took careful notes. "Her influence grows stronger every year," he murmured to his companion Elder Thrak of the Drakmor. 15 worlds have already adopted her teaching methods. Young hunters throughout the galaxy speak of honor through protection rather than conquest. Elder Thrak nodded approvingly, as it should be. "She has found what my people lost centuries ago. The true purpose of hunting is not to destroy, but to maintain balance." After the lesson ended, Nara walked through the corridors of the academy that bore her father's name. The Kael Vorthak Memorial Academy had grown from a single classroom to a sprawling complex that housed over 300 students and teachers from across the galaxy. The walls displayed artwork created by students from different species, showing their visions of a peaceful future. Human children drew pictures of alien friends. Aviarch youngsters painted scenes of different species working together. Even young Drakmor artists created sculptures celebrating cooperation over competition. Nara's personal office overlooked the memorial garden where the 3 shadow beasts she had healed still lived. They had become symbols of transformation throughout the galaxy, proof that even the most feared creatures could find peace through understanding. The largest beast, now called Whisper by the students, approached the window when he saw her. His golden eyes held the same gratitude they had shown 5 years ago in the arena. He had become the Academy's unofficial guardian, protecting students who played too close to dangerous areas of the planet. A soft chime indicated that someone was requesting entry to her office. "Come in," called Nara. Admiral Park entered, his hair now completely gray but his eyes still bright with the determination she remembered from childhood. Behind him walked Dr. Kim, Commander Han, and surprisingly her 2 best friends from New Seoul, Seung Ho. "Hiya, Jin!" Nara exclaimed, embracing them warmly. "I thought you were still on the exploration mission to the Andromeda Relay." "We finished early," grinned Seung Ho, now a captain in the human exploration fleet. "We wanted to be here for the big announcement." "What announcement?" asked Nara, confused. Admiral Park stepped forward with a formal document in his hands. "The Galactic Federation has reached a unanimous decision. They are requesting that you establish a permanent position as Galactic Mediator, with authority to resolve conflicts between species using your methods." Nara stared at the document in amazement. "They want me to become a diplomat?" "More than that," said Dr. Kim with pride. "They want you to become the architect of a new kind of peace. Your success with the Shadow Beasts was just the beginning. There are conflicts throughout the galaxy that have lasted for centuries, wars that started over misunderstandings and continued out of habit. The Federation believes you can heal them." Hyojin bounced excitedly. "Do you know what this means? You would have the authority to travel anywhere in the galaxy, to meet with any species, to solve problems that everyone else has given up on." Nara walked to her window and looked out at the memorial garden. The shadow beasts were playing with a group of children from 5 different species. None of the youngsters showed any fear of creatures that had once been considered the ultimate predators. "There is one condition," added Admiral Park quietly. "You would have to leave the academy for long periods. Your students would miss their teacher." "No," said a voice from the doorway. "Her students would follow their teacher." Everyone turned to see Elder Thrak entering the office, accompanied by several other Federation officials. The Council has approved a new initiative, a traveling school that will visit worlds in conflict. Students and teachers from different species will work together to solve problems while they learn. The idea was breathtaking in its scope. Instead of a single academy on one planet, there would be a mobile learning community that could bring the message of cooperation directly to places where it was needed most. "Think of it," said Elder Scythic, who had followed the group into the office. "When species are in conflict, you arrive not as a conqueror or judge, but as a teacher, bringing children from many worlds. How can anyone remain hostile in the face of such innocence and hope?" Nara felt tears gathering in her eyes. The plan was everything she had dreamed of during her lonely years of being feared and rejected. A chance to prove that her father's bloodline could create peace instead of destruction, a way to honor both her Drakmor heritage and her human upbringing. "My parents," she said suddenly, "Dongwu and Miran. Will they be part of this?" "If you want us," said a familiar voice from the corridor. Her adoptive parents entered the office, both of them beaming with pride. "We have already requested transfers to whatever ship you choose as your base." The reunion was emotional but brief. There was too much excitement about the future to dwell long on the past. Plans were made, logistics discussed, and dreams shared among the group. As the meeting broke up and people began to leave, Admiral Park lingered behind. "Are you sure about this?" he asked Nara quietly. "It will be dangerous work. There will be species that fear you, worlds that reject you, conflicts that seem impossible to solve." Nara looked at the memorial plaque on her wall, which bore her father's name and the inscription, "The greatest hunter who died protecting others." Below it was a newer edition she had commissioned, "The greatest teachers who live protecting hope." "My father faced his greatest challenge in an arena designed for death," she said. "I will face mine in classrooms designed for life." I think he would be proud of the difference. 6 months later, the first galactic mediation fleet departed from human space. 5 ships carried teachers, students, diplomats, and support staff from over 20 species. At their head flew the flagship Unity, commanded by Captain Nara Jong, galactic mediator and healer hunter. Their first destination was the war-torn system of Kepler 442, where 2 species had been fighting over mining rights for 50 years. Neither side expected much from the young Drakmor woman who arrived with a ship full of children. What they found instead was something the galaxy had never seen before. A new kind of power that came not from weapons or threats, but from the simple act of showing different species that they could work together for common goals. The children studied the mining dispute as a school project, interviewing workers from both species and learning about their needs and fears. Within 2 weeks, they had designed a sharing arrangement that satisfied everyone involved. The adults, embarrassed that children had solved their impossible problem so easily, signed the peace treaty with grateful humility. Word spread quickly. The abandoned Offspring, who was supposed to bring destruction, had instead brought the galaxy something it had been missing for millennia: hope that enemies could become friends, that understanding could replace fear, and that the future could be better than the past. As the Unity prepared to depart for their next assignment, the former enemies gathered to see them off. Children who had grown up hearing stories of ancient hatred now played together on the landing platform. "Thank you," said the mining chief, who had sworn never to trust the other species. "You have given our children a future we never thought possible."